You walk into an empty house, the lights are off. You flip the switch and nothing happens. For a second, just a second, the hair on your arm stands up. You feel it. Someone is watching you, but there is no one there. There never was. So why did your body just lie to you? The answer is far stranger than a haunted house or an overactive imagination. It goes back hundreds of thousands of years to a time when the feeling of being watched wasn't a glitch, it was a survival tool, and it never got the memo to switch off. Think about the modern moment you just lived through. The empty room, the prickling skin, the sudden urge to turn around. You probably called it irrational. You probably laughed it off. But your brain wasn't being irrational at all. It was running code that is older than language, older than fire, older than your species as you know it today. Scientists have a name for this. It's called the hyperactive agency detection device, a term coined by psychologist Justin Barrett to describe the brain's tendency to assume that ambiguous sounds, shadows, or movements come from something alive. Not a rock, not the wind, an agent, something with intention, something that might be hunting you. Here's why that matters. Imagine you are a small, slow, mostly hairless primate walking across the African savanna 200,000 years ago. You hear a rustle in the grass. It could be the wind. It could be a leopard. You have two choices. You can assume it's nothing and keep walking, or you can assume it's something and freeze, scan, retreat. If you guess wrong and assume it's nothing and it turns out to be a leopard, you die. Your genes die with you. But if you guess wrong the other way and you assume it's something dangerous when it's actually just the wind, you waste a few seconds of energy. You feel silly. You survive anyway. This is what researchers call an asymmetric cost of error. The penalty for underreacting is death. The penalty for overreacting is mild embarrassment. Over thousands of generations, which strategy do you think won? The paranoid ones, the jumpy ones, the ones who felt watched even when nothing was there? You are descended from the survivors of that bet. Every single one of your ancestors who lived long enough to pass on their genes was, on some level, a little too quick to assume danger, a little too quick to sense a presence in the dark. That sensitivity didn't disappear just because you now live in an apartment with a deadbolt and a doorbell camera. It's still wired into your nervous system, running the exact same calculation it ran on the savannah, except now the rustle in the grass is a creak in your hallway. Psychologist Jesse Bering has studied this tendency extensively, and his research suggests that humans are almost compulsively driven to detect minds behind events, even when no mind is present. He calls it a kind of evolved over-attribution. Your brain isn't trying to scare you, it's trying to protect you, using the only tool it has, pattern recognition tuned for worst-case scenarios. But agency detection alone doesn't fully explain why an empty room feels occupied. There's a second piece of this puzzle, and it has to do with how social your species actually is. Humans are, by primate standards, almost absurdly social. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar has spent decades studying what he calls the social brain, the idea that an unusually large portion of human cognitive power evolved specifically to track relationships, monitor threats from other people, and predict what others are thinking and planning. For most of human history, the most dangerous thing in your environment wasn't a leopard, it was another human, a rival group, a stranger with bad intentions. Being watched by another person unseen was not a paranoid fantasy, it was a real and recurring threat. So your brain developed two overlapping alarm systems. One scans for predators, one scans for people. Both systems are tuned to fire on ambiguous evidence because waiting for certainty was never an option when certainty might arrive in the form of teeth or a spear. Now picture that empty room again, the dark, the silence. Your eyes can't fully resolve the shapes in low light, so your visual system starts filling in gaps with guesses. Your peripheral vision, which is terrible at color and detail but excellent at detecting movement, picks up the faintest shift in shadow. Your predator detection system and your person detection system both fire at once, layering on top of each other. The result isn't just a vague unease, it's a specific embodied sensation. Someone is here and they are looking at you. There's a term for the underlying mechanism that makes this even more convincing. It's called pareidolia, the tendency to see faces and figures in random patterns, like a face in a power outlet or a figure in a curtain. Your brain is so committed to finding agents in the environment that it will manufacture them out of nothing more than shadow and suggestion. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This isn't a flaw unique to anxious people or superstitious people or people who grew up watching too many horror movies. Brain imaging studies have shown that the feeling of an unseen presence can even be artificially triggered. Researchers at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, led by neuroscientist Olaf Blanke, found that stimulating a specific region of the brain involved in self-perception and spatial awareness, called the temporoparietal junction, can cause people to feel as though someone is standing behind them, even in a completely empty room with no external stimulus at all. The sensation wasn't imagined in the sense of being made up. It was generated directly by misfiring circuitry, the same circuitry your ancestors relied on to detect threats in low-information environments. So what does this mean for you, walking through your own dark living room tonight? It means the feeling of being watched is not evidence of ghosts, and it's not evidence that something is wrong with you. It's evidence that your nervous system is doing exactly what it was built to do. It is scanning for agents. It is weighing the cost of a false alarm against the cost of a missed threat. And because that calculation was shaped by hundreds of thousands of years where the missed threat usually meant death, the alarm is set absurdly, almost comically, sensitive. There's something almost tender in that. Your body is still trying to protect you from a world that mostly no longer exists. The leopards are gone. The rival tribes raiding in the night are gone. But the alarm system that once kept your ancestors alive long enough to become your ancestors is still installed, still running, still scanning every shadow for a shape that shouldn't be there. Maybe that's worth remembering the next time you feel a chill walk into an empty room. You're not imagining a threat. You're hearing an echo, a signal sent from deep in your evolutionary past, traveling through hundreds of thousands of years just to reach you in your hallway at 11 at night. The next time you walk into an empty room and feel that prickle on the back of your neck, pause for a second before you laugh it off. That's not nothing. That's not a glitch. That is the oldest part of you, still standing guard, still watching the dark for shapes that aren't there. And somewhere in that ancient, overcautious flinch, the room isn't really empty at all.